Hello there. I'm joined today by a really good friend of mine, someone who I've known for a couple of years now, and was one of the first people I talked to within the Star Wars community. And I've spent many long hours discussing stuff with Tidus, who is here joining me this evening to talk about how he got into Star Wars and the wider expanded universe, which we'll get into shortly. Now, you may recognize Tidus if you've watched the channel before. He's been on multiple streams. I think it's somewhere around like 7 or 8. So he's been on a fair few streams with me. And actually, in a sadly deleted stream, we had done a stream back in 2021 from 2 years ago, where we'd kind of talked in a similar fashion to this. It was really fun. Sadly, somewhere along the way, I had accidentally deleted the files in a colossal blunder, and they're lost to time, lost to cyberspace. But we're here to talk about Star Wars and whatever else comes up along the way tonight. So thank you for joining me, Tidus. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great, man. How are you?
I'm doing pretty good. And another place that you can check Tidus out is he does have a YouTube channel. It's linked on my channels page. And he has some stuff up on there. I think you've planned to have some stuff up on there in the future, maybe. Is that right?
It's kind of indefinite. I honestly wouldn't really advertise my channel because there's no real content to be found there. The only real video or really piece of like substance that I've made is a live stream discussing a book, like a review.
Yeah, it's Alien, right?
Yeah, Alien versus Predator Prey by Steve Perry and S.D. Perry is his daughter.
That was with Ken and Marcel.
Yes.
Right? Nice. And you also had like a clip of some Jaden Core gameplay, I think, right?
Oh, that was years ago before that was just kind of like a joke video.
Yeah,
I just thought it was kind of funny.
For sure. But the cool stuff regardless. So if you want to go hear an in-depth discussion of Alien versus Predator, you can head on over there. You also have like, didn't you do voice demos for characters as well?
Yeah, just I was just messing around, really, just doing like the voices. I don't know.
Hey, that's fun stuff. Better than I can do. I cannot do voices.
I mean, and the auto dramas, you were not like awful. I thought it was like not half bad.
Oh, well, thank you. You were a great Zim on the Despotica on the Revanchist channel. But aside from all of these appearances, I guess the first question that I would ask, and it's one that I don't remember the answer to. So I'm interested in this. I've known you for so long, but when I was thinking about the questions for this, I was thinking like, I actually don't really know all the answers to it. So I'm curious to hear what was your first memory of Star Wars, or the first time that you got into Star Wars as a whole, as the overall thing?
My first memory of Star Wars, I think I was like 4 or 5. I had walked into my family. They were watching Revenge of the Sith, and I had saw Vader being lifted off the table, and that's as far as my memory reaches. I think that was the first memory. I do know that Lego Star Wars, not the game, but the sets, also kind of what exposed me to it. It was a little Lego set of a Ewok and a Scout Trooper.
Nice.
I really liked the designs, and it intrigued me, and then got a game, and I eventually watched the movies.
What order did you watch the movies in?
I cannot remember. I honestly don't remember.
So you were aware of it pretty early on with these vivid flashes then?
I would think so, yeah. And then I saw like Clone Wars advertisements and whatnot on Cartoon Network back then.
Back when it originally came out?
Yeah, though I never really watched Clone Wars until I believe late season 4, and the rest of season 5.
That's about when I hopped on to Clone Wars. Nice.
Mm.
So, did you instantly really like Star Wars and what you saw there in those films?
Yeah, it was something I just really liked, and I wasn't really thinking in like a story sense. I guess it's just something about aesthetic. It was pleasing to me, like the scores. And as the years like gone on, I've thought more critically about it, and I started
Mm.
realizing why I like these things and whatnot.
But it was originally just pretty flashy and aesthetically pleasing. Was the
Yeah,
original draw? Yeah,
yeah,
I think it's that way for a lot of people. Lightsabers, planets, aliens, the stars, spaceships. There's a lot of intrigue, I think, there. It kind of captures young imaginations.
mm.
So, after the movies and the Clone Wars, what was your introduction to the concept of there being a wider, expanded universe outside of films, outside of movies, that there was more to the universe that you found yourself enjoying?
Now that's a harder question because there's three distinct things that I have early memories of, but I don't remember which came first.
Okay.
The first one being was I think it was like in a comic book shop. No, not comic book shop, like Books a Million, and they had this little graphic novella for Clone Wars called Shipyards of Doom,
Yes.
and I believe that was my first Star Wars comic I ever got, and that was like one of them, one of my early memories. Uh, the other one being was the Force Unleashed games, Force Unleashed 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And the other one, the third one, would be the Jedi Apprentice books, but Jedi Apprentice Book 2 specifically. And I remember being intrigued just reading through the first few pages because they had mentioned this character named Xanatos, Qui-Gon's original apprentice. And I thought it was interesting when I was young because this character, Xanatos, was something that was never really referenced in Phantom Menace, nothing ever
Yeah.
alluded to. And it just kind of intrigued me how he just, I don't know, how he existed.
How he existed outside of the films.
Yeah,
So that's Dark. That's the Dark Apprentice. Was that the name of
the Dark
Jedi
Apprentice,
Apprentice?
that's what it was. It's
Nice.
like him in a saber lock with Qui-Gon on the cover.
Yeah, with his face up at the top.
Yeah.
That's a good book.
Mm.
Jude Watson's first Jedi Apprentice book since Dave Wolverton wrote the first one. Those are all some interesting introductions through various medium, comic book and video game. You covered all of the mediums there, so it just gradually kind of reached you that there was more out there.
Kinda. It's something that just kind of faded out of my memory though at a certain point because I knew about Jedi Apprentice, I knew about the Force Unleashed, but I never really looked deeper into that. I
Mm,
just kind of left it in the back burner of my mind. And as years would just go on and on and on, I would keep finding myself rewatching the films. That would be like my only real uh, constant of Star Wars, I guess. It wasn't really until 2020 or 2019 where I found myself in a bookstore and I saw a line of Star Wars books. I was intrigued in like the idea of like some old continuity before what we had in the like Disney, like the sequel films, whatnot.
yeah,
So I saw like Heir to the Empire, Dark Saber, among other books. But I decided to only buy two. I wanted to test the waters. So I
mm,
bought Heir to the Empire because I heard that's what people said was good. And I bought Dark Lord: The Rise of Darth Vader because I thought that a book about Darth Vader sounded pretty interesting.
yeah,
But I read Dark Lord first because I had favored the prequel era to the OT era. Not as films, but just aesthetically, I favored the prequel era more. So I had gone with the Darth Vader book. And that really was my first EU novel. Then uh, I started reading the comics. Crimson Empire or Purge, I believe, was the first. It may have been
nice.
Purge, and then Crimson Empire and Republic at a certain point. Then Tales of the Jedi, Knights of the Old Republic, Dark Times, Legacy.
You got through most of them then there. I think it's interesting that your first EU novel ties back to your like original memory of Star Wars with Vader.
I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, it tied back in there.
Yeah.
So that was another thing I was going to ask. In regards to the films, what your favorite movie was? You've said the prequels is the era that you favored. Does your favorite movie come from that
No,
trilogy?
no.
No,
It
it does not.
when I say I favor the prequels, I mean purely aesthetically,
Aesthetically,
and I
right?
just like the ideas in the prequels. I always like the Clone Wars,
Oh
and
yeah,
but as a film, like my favorite movie is A New Hope.
A New Hope. What is it about A New Hope that makes it the favorite for you?
I had to put that into that one. I like the arc of Luke, like the basic setup of the hero's journey.
Yeah,
I like the music in it. It's great. I like the beginning of it.
absolutely. I mean, nothing else. We wouldn't have anything else if it hadn't been as good as it was.
Yeah.
And it hits on that hero's journey aspect
Mm.
with Luke. It's like the fantasy arc with the like hero's archetype, and it's definitely captivating. So, in regards to the comics, was there something that was guiding you in your journey into the comics, or did you just pick up the first comic that you could find, which was Purge or Crimson Empire, and what guided you into seeking out the next ones?
Um, Really, it was kind of blind. It was just kind of whatever I thought looked cool. Purge kind of dumbed down to the same reasoning of why I chose Dark Lord. It was something. It was Darth Vader's on the cover. I thought that it'd be cool. You know, it's Darth Vader centered. So I read it. Crimson Empire. Was kind of in the same boat, but instead of like being Vader, it's like, oh, something about royal guards. That must be cool.
Mm-hmm.
Which, in hindsight, I think is a little bit funny because the beginning of Crimson Empire, they mentioned everything with Palpatine's clones being sabotaged and whatnot. I had no clue what they're referencing. I
Yeah,
had no context, and I don't even remember at the time I considered that when I read it. It's just I was just enjoying the story.
yeah. When did you realize that it was referencing something else? When you got to Dark Empire, or did you read about that
Yeah,
online somewhere?
I believe I read it online. That's when I started seeing like the connections of it all,
Mm.
and that's when I started to read things more. Uh, in a sense that I was just interested in like overall, not just that like I thought it looked cool. Though I will say, um, my beginning of reading Republic also came down to a character I thought that looked cool, Quinlan Voss.
Mm.
I was really only exposed to Quinlan Voss through TCW, but I
Yeah,
always thought that he had like a cool design. So I was like, all right, where can I read, find more about him? So that led me through the path of reading all the Republic issues featuring him,
nice.
and through reading Stars 1998 with him, the Quinlan arcs. It had prompted me into going back and reading all the issues that I had not read with Kiadi Mundi and Hunt for Aura Singh, Outlander,
Yeah,
so forth and so on.
some really good
And
stuff in there.
yeah, and I don't know, it just kind of just ended up like that.
Nice. So it began basically as whatever designs you liked. You
Yeah.
kind of delved into that.
Mm.
That's cool. That there's a draw there.
It's very
Uh,
surface level, but I don't know. It looked interesting, so I wanted to look it up. Tales of the Jedi. I don't remember why I read Tales of the Jedi. I think it was just because I was intrigued to see what the Old Republic was like
mm,
prior to KOTOR, the game.
yeah.
See what a world it had envisioned back then.
And did you like what you saw there visually, aesthetically, story wise? I mean, those comics are pretty
Uh,
epic.
Story wise, yes. I am mixed on the art. I think in Redemption, I really like the art style there because it's more stylized, cartoony. That's kind of like artwork I favor more.
Yeah, Redemption has some nice art.
But everything else was just kind of, I didn't really feel anything. Like for the rest of it, it was okay.
Gotcha, gotcha. Had you played KOTOR before reading Tales of the Jedi?
Now that I think about it, no, I had not. But I remember that the reason I played KOTOR was because I had wanted to read the Bane novels,
Okay.
and I had heard that KOTOR had come up in the Bane novels.
Yeah,
And I know that this sounds crazy, but I wanted to know the context and connection. So I had literally just gone through and played KOTOR 1 and KOTOR 2, so I wouldn't miss out on anything in Bane.
that's awesome.
And I think part of my reasoning for Tezza Joy also came down to that.
Gotcha. Yeah, because as it had kind of transitioned from like surface level to seeing the story threads,
Yeah.
it transitioned into being motivated by what can I read and understand, kind of.
Mm.
You were a pretty crazy collector. You have a lot of the EU on your
Mm.
bookshelves. I think for a lot of us, a lot of the fun with the Star Wars EU is collecting it. Have you found that to be the case over the years?
Yeah. I mean, as of late, I found myself in a position where I'm kind of collecting more than I actually am consuming. And that's mostly just because, busy. Don't really have time to sit down and read novels as I used to. Um, I don't know, but yeah, I feel that entirely. For
Mm.
the collecting, the hunt is one of the more fascinating, entertaining parts of it. But I think that's just kind of like with like fandom in general. Like when it comes to like comic books, I read most of my comics digitally, but I do like hunting and trying to find them in very niche bookstores or niche comic stores around me.
Oh, for sure. That's a huge part of the fun is going into those old places and scrounging through the back.
Yep.
So much fun in that pursuit in that regard. In all of your forays of all of your journey into the Star Wars expanded universe, what novel or novels have been your favorite so far that you've read?
My favorite is where I started. Dark Lord, Rise of Darth Vader.
It's a very good book. What about that one sets it apart for you?
I liked the characterization of Vader. I liked
Mm,
how that, although it was like Vader at like immediately after Revenge of the Sith, he was not like we just didn't drop off into like how we see him in OT. He
yeah.
still acted and like Anakin. He was still emotional. He was still distraught. He was
Mm,
adjusting to all these different changes and the ramifications of all his actions. And I'd like to see that slight transition to this malicious villain that we see in the OT.
yeah. It's written really well. Are you a fan of Lucino's prose as well?
Yes, I thought he did a very good job of articulating different things and scenes and whatnot.
For sure. Would you say that you're a fan of Plagueis as well?
I've not read Plagueis, funny
Okay.
enough.
Dark Lord was definitely a good start.
Yep.
Nice. Now, in regards to comics, that can be a bit harder. I find that it's harder for me to rank the comics because I just find there to be so many good parts in all of them. But if you had to pick a favorite comic book series that you've read, uh, which one would come to mind?
Um, I would say Dark Times, honestly.
Oh, that's a great choice
Das Janir's he's a great character. He's just
for
very
sure.
human. He's
Mm,
not because I think that's just what sets him apart from like Jedi. He does very little things, very selfless actions, but not because like he's trying to adhere to some code or anything. It's just I don't know how do I say it. It comes off like he cares more about the people that he's trying to help.
yeah.
It's not like he's obligated. He's not doing it out of obligation.
Mm, I definitely see that. He's a great character. The Dark Times comics get pretty dark, specifically in some instances, like Bomo's daughter's really untimely and sickening death. Were moments like that kind of shocking to you when you read it for the first time? Uh, Given Star Wars's nature, did it feel
Yeah, that
significantly darker?
that was a curve. I think one of the more just kind of like action like moments was the separatist refugee camp where
Mm,
the Imperials were talking about they were going to take them to this place where they would have a home and whatnot, or probably, I don't think it was a home, like they would get off world or something like that. But they would load them up on this transport carrier, and then just like dump them all off like a hill, like all their bodies just pile up on like just below the hill. It's kind of crazy.
yeah, wild stuff. It was truly a dark era. So your favorite comic book series and your favorite novel both come from the Dark Times era. Would you identify that is one of your favorite eras of the expanded universe then?
Not one of my favorite eras because it's very unexplored. It's
Mm,
to my knowledge, it's only really touched on there in guidebooks and of course Battlefront 2. Pandemic Battlefront 2 if it's latter half of his campaign.
yeah.
It could be some more areas where it's touched on, but I don't know all of them.
So is your favorite era of the EU then the prequel era with the aesthetics to that era?
Um, well, yeah, but it transcends more than the aesthetic of the prequel era. Like I generally do like the lore and all the characters, the
Mm,
ideas in it, like the Republic comics, when not Cloak of Deception, Maul Shadowhunter. I thought they were all great.
for sure. It definitely takes like the themes of the era and makes it deeper and
Mm.
fleshes it out more. So in regards to the expanded universe, what is your favorite character that's original to the expanded universe, and what would your favorite character be that's a character from the films that you feel was extensively expanded upon within the expanded universe that makes them a really good character within the EU?
Um, Now that question I find myself struggling with because I would say Quinlan Voss may be my favorite EU original character,
Yeah,
but then again, would General Grievous count as like an EU original character? Because if that's the case, then I would say General Grievous.
true, because Grievous originally appeared in Clone Wars 2003.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. Grievous definitely is better in the EU than his film appearance.
Yeah, it's just it's what George envisioned for the character though.
Mm,
He he saw a lot of weird things with him, like especially the different origin and how that his reasoning of becoming a cyborg was rooted in that he was rejected as a child by the Jedi Order.
mm,
So he became a cyborg to get back at them, I guess.
yeah,
And I never really liked that, but it is
yeah.
what George had envisioned for him.
It was one of George's quirks,
Yep.
and so it's a toss up then between Grievous and Quinlan. Now, what about a character that was first from the films that was expanded upon extensively in the EU? What's your favorite character there?
I really got to think about that one. I honestly don't know. I'm thinking about it some, and I don't really know right now.
I know you're a pretty big fan of Aura Singh.
Ah, I forgot about her. I honestly, she slipped my mind, but she could fit that bill.
Mm. What is it about Aura Singh that you find to be so captivating then?
Well, what I find interesting about Aura Singh is I thought the design was kind of interesting. It's very weird and alien. The
Oh,
long
yeah.
fingers, the hair, the skin, everything about it. But as a character, I like how she is just a perfect product of abandonment.
Mm,
And she kind of just, she doesn't really channel all of her problems in a healthy way.
no.
Like it easily could be all solved if she reunited with the Dark Woman and they sat down and talked out everything. Because the reason why she is so bitter and so like evil, and just so hell bent on like taking revenge against the Jedi, is because she believed that she was abandoned by the Dark Woman. But the truth was that she was kidnapped without the Dark Woman even knowing.
Yeah.
And just I just think that it like in a possible just, I don't know, alternate reality, I guess, if they were to talk out things and realize that it was all a misunderstanding, I think things could be better.
Definitely. Definitely a missed opportunity for the Dark Woman. It could have gone a lot differently, but it led to a interesting antagonist throughout the EU. What did you feel about her characterization within TCW?
I don't really like it. I don't really understand why the whole Jedi Padawan aspect is kind of gone, and I don't really
Yeah,
understand the whole relationship with Boba.
it was a strange choice.
Yeah, it's very weird. But to go back to like what I was saying, like EU or Saints, I think a really profound moment was in the Republic comics when she duels Ayla,
Mm,
because Ayla essentially breaks her by pointing out every flaw, like all of her insecurities, and Aura Singh, she makes like a facial expression where she like kind of like realizes that Ayla is telling the truth. Like what is she saying is like all true.
Yeah.
But like once again, she doesn't handle these things in like reasonable manners, and she just lashes out at Ayla, and she gets defeated.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish I've not read Legacy of Force, but I'm pretty sure, and from what I've seen, it's something that she never resolves.
Yeah.
It's just kind of an issue that she had, and I guess she swept it under the rug.
Yeah, definitely. You make a good point. You make her sound a more interesting character than I perhaps realized or appreciated. But yeah,
I,
she's pretty terrific and interesting.
I think in many ways she parallels how Assad's Ventress character is, where
Mm,
that they are both products of abandonment, and they're both of their hatreds kind of stems from misunderstanding.
yeah. Now, Asajj Ventress is another character that you enjoy quite a bit.
Yes, that's also one of my favorite Star Wars characters.
What do you think about the differences between her presentation in the Republic comics versus TCW? Do you think they can mesh together at all, or do you think the two are unreconcilable?
Um, I think they are similar in strokes, but specifics they are very different.
Mm,
EU Ventress, like I said, the whole abandonment thing. She is very big on clinging to people, or to put it better, obsession. And that's
yeah.
what I think that the title, like the miniseries Obsession, was getting at.
Yep.
Because once she had lost her master, she kind of had clung on to Obi-Wan. She was obsessed
Mm,
with him. And that's why their rivalry kept this the back and forth, constant back and forth. And TCW, I don't think they ever really made a point of her obsession or her need to cling on to something.
yeah. No, that was profound. I'm sitting here like scratching my head thinking about that. Yeah, you're right. That's a very interesting way to come up about that discrepancy between those characters. Obsession, like the comic, like you said. Yeah, she's a very obsessed character. Another character that features in those Republic comics that we both enjoy greatly is Dirge. What about Dirge do you enjoy?
I just think he's just entertaining. He's just a big bounty hunter. He easily defeats Jedi. Just character wise, I mean, there's some character Dirge now that I think about it, because there's a prototypes comic,
Yeah,
but I don't really think there's much characterization from him. It's just kind of as skin deep as that. He holds his hatred towards Mandalorians because they killed his master,
yep,
which I find a bit ironic because Jang, his mentor, was in fact a Mandalorian.
yeah. It is quite ironic. One thing that you pointed out that I never knew before, that is still something that kind of blows my mind, and that I think you've told many an EU fan to their surprise, is that Dirge didn't necessarily die.
Well, I say take like we'll take it for a grain of salt, because the way that it's articulating towards galaxies, that they come across this life form, that it has regenerative capabilities, but it's like it cannot regenerate to whatever full form it originally was. And they
Yeah.
label it Project Dirge. Now, what I will say is that I will always like contest the idea that it's not Dirge, because I think it's in the realm of possibilities. The shtick with Dirge's character is that he has constantly survived through the ages,
Yep.
and his survivability has made a great point of his character.
For sure.
So that's why I always argue and saying that who is not to say that he didn't die from being sent to a sun. It sounds crazy. It sounds absurd, yes. But it's in the realm of possibilities that it could be him.
Mm.
But definitively, no, I won't say that's definitively him. I just think that it's possible.
It's definitely something interesting to consider. Galaxies has some wacky stuff in there. I know there's like a Obi-Wan arc with HK droids, right?
I believe so.
Yeah, it did some interesting stuff. Galaxies, and who knows? Maybe it did or maybe it didn't imply that Dirge is out there. It's definitely something interesting, something I didn't know, but is quite cool. And now on the topic of video games, if you had to select a favorite video game from the EU, which video game would you select? Because I know there's quite a few that you enjoy.
I would say KOTOR 2 is my favorite Star Wars game.
And is that mainly due to the story, the characterization of the characters in there?
Mostly, yeah. It's story. I find the companions enjoyable, and I find them interesting to learn about.
For
And
sure.
for the gameplay, I mean, not everyone's a fan of it, but I quite enjoy the gameplay. And once you really understand how it all works, it's quite fun.
Yeah, I'm one of those people who struggle with the gameplay immensely. But you've played KOTOR 2 a few times, haven't you?
Yeah, I've replayed it a bunch of times.
Nice. There's some other games that you enjoy that are somewhat interesting, somewhat obscure. I know, Clone Wars 2002 is a game that you talk about
Oh,
highly.
that game is a guilty pleasure because, well, it's just hard. The game is very hard. It's not
Mhm.
awful, but it's just that you have to be on your toes constantly. And that Dark Reaper mission, the final one, I kid you not, I think there's one checkpoint in that whole mission. And if you die, you get sent back to the beginning. And that the final fight with the actual Dark Reaper is so difficult because you get sent back so far once you die. And they don't really tell you how to beat it. You just kind of shoot at like one vulnerable part of it, I think. But there's like constant shields coming up.
Yeah, it's got kind of a disjointed feeling gameplay.
Mm. Yeah, it
But
does kind of feel floaty.
it's got like some interesting references in there and some interesting lore.
Kinda. I'm not. It's kind of interesting that like the whole Tidus connection, but I don't really think it makes much sense because I don't think there was enough ample time for this Dark Reaper to be a thing. Never once did they mention a super weapon in the Tales of Jedi comics, and even then, I don't know when Ulik would find the time to help the Jedi after this because they say that Ulik helped the Jedi combat it, and I'm assuming that would be after he is stripped of the Force.
Mm-hmm.
But at that point in the comic, from what I remember, he was distraught the whole time. He was just like standing still. He was just there. So I don't really know where he could find the time to inform them about how to defeat this Dark Reaper, this super weapon that just suddenly appeared.
Yeah, it's a bit of a mental gymnastics, I suppose.
Yeah.
An interesting character that you enjoy quite a bit, and really I know a whole subsect of characters are the acolytes of Dooku, are characters that you find fascinating. I think. What about the dark acolytes of Dooku attracts your interest, and which acolytes in specific are some of your favorites?
Well, I mean, I just find them broadly interesting just because many of them don't really come up anywhere. Like, majority of them don't go reference anywhere. And it seems that the only one that served any major importance or had any long-lasting legacy was Ventress.
Yeah.
And I will say that Ventress is my favorite, but I say that out of the bunch, the most interesting is Severance Ton. And I think it's kind of a shame that her name is not breathed in the EU at all, aside from 2 guidebooks.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Severance 10 is fascinating. It is a shame that we didn't get more of her. The Guide to Warfare was one of the places that talked about her, right?
No, unfortunately, they did not bring her up there,
Oh,
which would have been perfect, but did not happen. She was referenced in New Central Chronology, and she was referenced
that's what
in
it was.
New Central Guide to Alien Species under the CHIS,
Yeah,
which is
gotcha.
something funny about Severance Ton, and it'll make you think twice. If you notice her name is not conventional CHIS naming. Like she does not
No.
have the same name as like Mithra Nuru Odo.
Yeah.
She has like a first and last name, which is kind of weird, and they don't really ever elaborate that.
No.
And it's not a case like Kuru. What's the guy from Secret Missions? Kuru
Kuru Nungarama.
no Gurama. Like it's not a case like him where he was raised in like the main galaxy 9 outside the unknown regions. She was from like Scylla, the unknown regions. So it's just kind of odd that her name is not like all the other chiss.
That is strange. While we're kind of broadly on the topic of video games, one video game that you enjoy quite a lot is Empire at War. So much so that there was a stream we did like a year ago where you were playing Empire at War in the middle of the stream, which was quite comedic. What about Empire at War makes it one of your favorite games?
It's just the modding community for it is great.
Mm.
and it's just something I can really soak hours into. And then with each new update to these mods that put like Thrawn's Revenge and Fall of the Republic, I find myself discovering more possibilities and things I can do.
Yeah.
So I don't know. It's intriguing.
It's got an extremely dedicated fan base, like you said, with these mods. It's absolutely really cool what
It's
they've been
very
able to do.
it's very niche, but yeah,
Yeah, they're so dedicated that they've made entire campaigns, which is quite amazing that they were able to accomplish that. Across all of the different mediums of Star Wars media, which would you say is your favorite? Which I know is hard because it's like, do I prefer a movie, a novel, a comic, or a video game? But which facet has connected with you the most? Would you say
of EU material.
of EU material for books, comics, video games, or novels? Specifically, I guess which storytelling method do you think has connected with you the most in regards to EU? And
I
that
would.
could be connected though to broader outside the
Hmm.
EU as well.
I mean, I would say novels simply because it paints a larger picture. At least from the books I read, it paints a better picture for me. I've read more comics than I've read novels, but I would still say that, like, as storytelling, I prefer the medium of like novels.
Mm. It lets you get inside the characters' heads,
Yeah.
uh, gives more perspective.
Mm.
In regards to what you've currently been reading is Jedi Prince, which we were talking about a bit before we had started the recording, and you had some interesting things to say about what you appreciated regarding Jedi Prince's story that I think is really cool.
Well, I didn't really say much. I just said that I think the story's fun. It's funny. It's entertaining. And although that the prose is not like great, it's not like outstanding. I think some things are done pretty well. Like the setup
Mm,
of Trioculus as a villain, like this cold, ruthless warlord. It's sold pretty good. And I like how
yeah,
that's subverted by, then we find out that Hissa is the true honcho of the operation and that it's not actually Trioculus. But, because they was hyped up and built up in such this menacing way, we would think otherwise.
yeah. It's definitely interesting, and it's got some good plot narratives in there, like you said. It's pretty cool overall. Something that's really cool that you have some of that I'm jealous of is you have some pretty cool EU action figures and some overall pretty rare action figures. Uh, do you think it's cool that the EU got some merchandise made for it and toys and stuff like that? Do you think that's important for it that it got some representation in that facet of entertainment?
Um, I don't know about important, but I do think it is cool that like all places in the EU kind of got their own figure.
Yeah,
Like you had the Micro Series, you had the Dark Forces game, you had KOTOR, and I'm just talking about like the 3 inch figures, and I don't know, it's just interesting, but they go for so much now, like a Kruk and Jason and Jaina.
oh yeah, so
And
much.
then there's the comic packs. There's the Crimson Empire one with Kyrkanos and Carnajax. There's a Tales
Yeah,
of Jedi one for Ulick and Exar.
and Trasa and Tolm were in one.
Yeah.
Tholm, yeah. There's definitely some cool stuff there, and it's cool that they took the time to make them. One cool one that you have is Bolter Swan, which is not specifically an EU character, but it's one that was expanded upon within the EU.
Yeah. But I would say that my favorite that I own is the pre-cyborg General Goose, the Kwaimain Jai Shalal.
Yeah, the Kalish
Yeah.
one that's super cool. I always forget that they made that as a figure.
Hmm. And they made one based on a concept art of Grievous.
Yeah, some really cool stuff there. What would you advise to people who are looking to get into the EU, who kind of have a understanding of the films but are interested in where to go with the EU? What would you say based on how you discovered the EU would maybe be important things to consider?
Well, it's kind of a tough question, but Simply, uh, I think it just kind of come down to what do you like in Star Wars,
Mm,
and how willing are you to invest. Like, if you like the story of Luke, his narrative, then maybe you'd be interested in Shadows of the Empire, things that further his progression, plot lines in the OT. Heir to the Empire, like the continuation of where it left off of. Or maybe if you're interested in more like niche characters that are, or not niche characters, but like supporting cast characters throughout the films, like Mace Windu. Maybe
mm,
like read something like Shatterpoint. I don't know. It's just all I'm basically saying is just that whatever you like about Star Wars, I think that's just going to point to you naturally what you're going to end up reading in the EU. I can't
yeah,
really suggest one specific thing because it's just it's too nuanced. Like someone's preferences or something,
it's more
it's nuanced.
personal.
Yeah. So all I
And
can really say is just that as long as you know what you like, then I'm sure along the way you're going to find like a EU story or game or comic or whatever it may be that you'll resonate with and you like.
definitely, I think that's very true. There, we're I think humans are very can connect with characters very well. Like, kind of obviously, stories are kind of have to be character driven often. So finding a character that you can connect with can really lead you where you want to go in regards to the EU. Something cool that me and Titus have coming up that we've been talking about for a while, and uh, I wish it could have happened a while ago, but we're here now. Is something cool that we'd like to do on YouTube. Uh, that's in regards to a non-Star Wars television series that we're going to watch together and give our thoughts on. Now, this was a show that you had discovered, Titus, and you introduced to me, and I think it's really cool.
Mm.
So, can you talk a little bit about the story behind it?
Um, it's called War Planets. It was developed by Mainframe Entertainment, I believe,
Mm,
and they. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that they developed the first fully 3D animated series, which was Reboot.
mm,
And I watched Reboot many years ago, which had led me down a rabbit hole of discovering War Planets, along with Transformers Beast Wars, which is another great series done by them. And War Planets is just essentially a story that follows these alien races, which are all different elements, like ice, fire, stone, or earth, I guess. And they have to come together to defeat this alien that is trying to wipe out all of them. But why it's so significant for them to come together is because that for centuries on end they have been at war with each other. And the thing about it was that although they were at war with each other, they would always steal from one another too, because they all had a resource that they had to depend on. They
mm.
they all depended on one another, but they were at war with each other. But now they are making a conscious decision to come together to depend on one another against this alien threat.
Yeah, so it's a sci-fi show essentially,
Mm.
in really old 3D animation. There were two seasons, correct, or were there three?
I think it's true.
Just two.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. So we'll be watching that. I've only seen the first four episodes, so I am really excited to get further into it. There's some pretty cool stuff going on. I really like the design of the show, the design of the characters. It's definitely old, but it's very charming, and it's got an interesting story, lively voice acting, and I was really excited when you introduced it to me. So I'm really excited to be delving into that. So thanks for introducing me to that, and hopefully, uh, the viewers will tune into that if that's something you would like to see uh, as we watch War Planet sometime in the coming weeks, months, however long it'll take to watch the show. I'm looking forward to it. Was Was it like tied into any toy line like Transformers was?
Yeah, there was a toy line behind War Planets,
Okay,
but
cool.
of course, people like Larry DiTilio and Lin Wayne, a writer that did Green Lantern for a lot of years, they wanted to flesh it out. They didn't just
Mm,
want to have like a show that was just kind of like a shameless toy advertisement, kind of like Transformers G1.
right.
Um, they actually wanted to tell some type of narrative behind the toys.
That's really cool. And I think it's important for the sales of the toy that there is some nuance and some backstory to it. But yeah, thank you so much for joining me for this, Titus, to talk a bit about how you got into the Star Wars expanded universe and talk about a bit about what you've enjoyed in it. And I appreciate you taking the time, my friend, to sit down to do this with me. And I'm really looking forward to watching War Planet.
Of course, man.
So thank you guys for watching. And if you want to converse with Titus, he's around in the discords, the various discords, and he's usually active on there. Uh, really cool guy to talk to, and I mean, shoot, back in like 2020, we would text for hours on end just about the EU or Transformers or just whatever, really, and really fun times. So I've really come to value our virtual friendship here, and getting to talk about some of these franchises we love. It's really cool. So uh, thank you for doing this with me, and I appreciate you coming on. And thanks for just all the fun, all the fun times we've had talking about these franchises. It's been cool.
Of course.
So with that said, I'll see you guys all next time, and thank you for watching.